Every artist tells a story, but Taylor Swift? She doesn't just tell one. She builds entire universes. With every album, every tour, every hidden lyric tucked into a song, Taylor reinvents herself. She's not simply a pop star or a songwriter. She's a storyteller whose eras have become cultural events. From cowboy boots and curly hair in Nashville to stadium-shaking anthems that define generations, Taylor has mastered something few artists ever could: the ability to grow up in public while keeping millions emotionally invested in every single chapter. But behind the glittering tours and viral TikTok trends, each era carries its own story, a diary of heartbreaks, battles, reinventions, and rebirths. This isn't just music. It's the story of resilience, transformation, and power. So today, we're stepping into Taylor's world, era by era, to uncover what was really happening behind the songs that shaped a global icon. What fueled the innocence of her debut? What heartbreak built Red? What darkness shaped Reputation? And what triumphs brought us to Midnights? The country girl, Taylor Swift. Before Taylor was a global icon, she was a teenager with a guitar, chasing radio stations in Nashville with demo CDs. Her debut album, Taylor Swift, was released in 2006, and it was the diary of a high school girl in love, in heartbreak, and in awe of life. Songs like Tim McGraw and Teardrops on My Guitar weren't polished pop anthems. They were raw, unfiltered windows into teenage emotions. What made Taylor different wasn't just her voice, it was her honesty. She wrote her own songs in an industry dominated by producers and co-writers. That authenticity became her superpower. Fans, especially young girls, didn't just listen to Taylor, they saw themselves in her. Fearless, 2008 America falls in love. If her debut was an introduction, Fearless was a coronation. With hits like Love Story and You Belong With Me, Taylor moved beyond Nashville. Suddenly, she was the voice of teenage America. She sold millions, headlined her first tour, and even won the Grammy for Album of the Year, the youngest ever at the time. But Fearless wasn't just popular, it was personal. The fairy tale imagery, the ball gowns, the high school crushes, they mirrored the dreams and struggles of an entire generation. Taylor was still that curly-haired girl with a guitar, but now she was telling every fan's story on the biggest stage possible. Speak Now, 2010, the songwriting statement. Taylor was tired of being doubted. After critics suggested she wasn't the sole writer of her hits, she responded with Speak Now, an album written entirely by herself. No co-writers, no collaborators, just Taylor. This era was theatrical, whimsical, and deeply confessional. Tracks like Dear John cut like knives, while Enchanted built worlds of wonder. Taylor was only 20, but she was writing with the precision of a novelist. Fans didn't just consume Speak Now, they dissected it, hunting for the real stories behind the lyrics. But Speak Now was also about maturity. The princess gowns gave way to darker themes: regret, revenge, longing. Taylor was moving away from fairy tales and into reality, where love wasn't always happy ever after. Commercially, she soared, stadiums filled, and sales broke records. Personally, she was showing her critics that her pen was sharper than any insult. Red, 2012, the heartbreak masterpiece. If Fearless was a fairy tale, Red was the messy breakup. Critics call it one of her best works, and for good reason. It was Taylor at her most vulnerable, capturing the chaos of heartbreak with both intimacy and spectacle. Songs like All Too Well, I Knew You Were Trouble, and We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together showed a woman navigating the sharp edge of love and loss. The emotions were contradictory, passionate, bitter, nostalgic, and explosive, all wrapped in one record. But Red was also transitional. It wasn't fully country, and it wasn't fully pop. It was the sound of Taylor experimenting, pushing boundaries, and preparing for her biggest leap yet. She even said, Red sounds like a heartbroken person. And it did: chaotic, scattered, unforgettable. Fans latched onto All Too Well in particular, elevating it to legendary status years later when the 10-minute version broke the internet. 1989, 2014, The Pop Conquest. With 1989, Taylor burned the last bridge to country music and reinvented herself as a full-fledged pop superstar. Gone were the guitars and cowboy boots. This was synth's bright colors and bold reinvention. The singles were unstoppable: Shake It Off, Blank Space, Style, and Bad Blood. Each one became a cultural moment, cementing Taylor not only as a pop star, but as the pop star of the mid-2010s. But 1989 wasn't just about music, it was about image. Taylor built her squad, aligned herself with supermodels and celebrities, and embraced the media spectacle. For the first time, she wasn't just writing about her life. She was curating how the world saw her. Critics praised it, fans devoured it, and the Grammys awarded her Album of the Year again. Taylor was at the peak of her commercial power. Reputation, 2017, the villain era. When the media turned against her, Taylor didn't hide. She struck back. Reputation was born out of scandal, feuds, and betrayal. The snake imagery, the dark production, the unapologetic lyrics, it was Taylor reclaiming the narrative. Songs like Look What You Made Me Do and Ready for It weren't just music. They were declarations. Taylor wasn't America's sweetheart anymore. She was dangerous, sharp, and unafraid to play the villain. But beneath the armor, Reputation also carried some of her most intimate love songs. Tracks like Delicate and New Year's Day revealed vulnerability amid the chaos. Critically, the album divided. Commercially, it was massive. The Reputation Stadium Tour became the highest-grossing tour in U.S. history at the time. Lover, 2019, The Rebirth. After the darkness of Reputation, Taylor returned with Lover, an explosion of color, romance, and hope. This was the era of pastel aesthetics, glittering visuals, and songs that felt like sunlight after a storm. Tracks like Lover, The Archer, and You Need to Calm Down captured a mix of intimacy and activism. She sang about love, equality, and self-reflection. For the first time, Taylor was fully in control of her narrative, not defined by feuds or scandals, but by her own vision. But Lover also carried undertones of maturity. The themes weren't teenage crushes or fairy tales anymore. They were about long-term love, vulnerability, and finding stability in chaos. The Loverfest tour was planned as her next big era-defining moment. But then, the world stopped. Folklore and Evermore, 2020, The Surprise Stories. In 2020, Taylor shocked the world. No countdowns, no big announcements, just a sudden drop of Folklore, followed months later by Evermore. These weren't pop albums, they were indie folk stories. Trading stadium anthems for quiet piano ballads, Taylor crafted fictional tales, weaving characters and emotions into haunting melodies. Songs like Cardigan, Exile, and Champagne Problems turned living rooms into concert halls during quarantine. These albums weren't about spectacle. They were about storytelling at its purest. Critics hailed them as some of her best work, and fans found comfort in the intimacy of her writing during a global crisis. For Taylor, it was proof she could thrive outside the machine of pop stardom. She didn't need radio hits or viral singles. She just needed a pen, a piano, and a vision. Midnights, 2022, the return of the pop poet. After the folk detour, Taylor returned to pop with Midnights. But this wasn't the pop of 1989. It was darker, sleeker, and more introspective. Midnights explored sleepless thoughts, personal battles, and hidden insecurities. Tracks like Anti-Hero, Lavender Haze, and Bejeweled showed a woman reflecting on fame, identity, and desire. It wasn't about conquering charts, though she did. It was about confronting the shadows of her own success. It's Me, Hi, I'm the Problem. It's Me became an anthem for self-awareness and a culture of perfection. With Midnights, Taylor proved she could blend the spectacle of pop with the intimacy of storytelling. It was both glitter and grit, diary and dance floor. The Eras Tour and beyond. The Eras Tour wasn't just a concert. It was a cultural phenomenon. 3 hours, 44 songs, spanning every album of her career. It became the highest-grossing tour of all time. For fans, it was more than music. It was nostalgia, community, and catharsis. Every costume, Every transition, every Easter egg was a celebration of Taylor's evolution. But the tour also marked something bigger. Taylor wasn't just performing her eras, she was owning them. Every mistake, every heartbreak, every reinvention became part of a larger story of resilience and reinvention. As she continues re-recording her masters with Taylor's version, Taylor Swift has become more than an artist. She's a business mogul, a cultural force, and perhaps the most influential songwriter of her generation. The story behind every era isn't just about music. It's about survival, strategy, and storytelling on the grandest scale.